Why the Strait of Hormuz is impossible to fully defend. You're probably looking at this and thinking this should be easy to control. It's a narrow strip of water, just 33 kilometers across, with only a few shipping lanes running through it. On top of that, it's one of the most heavily monitored places on Earth. The United States has warships here. The Fifth Fleet operates nearby in Bahrain. Surveillance aircraft patrol overhead, and satellites track movements constantly. So, in theory, this should be one of the most secure waterways on the planet. But it's not.
The Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz is closed.
Because the Strait of Hormuz isn't just difficult to defend, it's already proven that it cannot be fully secured, even by the most powerful navy in the world. And what's happening right now is only reinforcing that reality. To understand why, you have to start with how the strait actually works. At its narrowest point, it's about 33 kilometers wide, but ships don't use all of that space. Instead, they're funneled into just two official shipping lanes, each roughly 3 kilometers wide, one for incoming traffic, one for outgoing. Everything else is considered buffer. This means every oil tanker, every cargo ship, every naval vessel is forced into a fixed and highly predictable path. And that predictability creates a fundamental problem. It may seem like control, but in reality, it turns the strait into a targeting system. Every ship follows the same route at roughly the same speed through the same corridor, and every attacker knows exactly where that corridor is. Now look at the geography around it, because this isn't just open water. This is a tightly controlled environment. Iran dominates the northern coastline, but more importantly, it controls the islands positioned inside and around the strait. Qeshm Island is the largest and most critical. Hormuz Island sits directly inside the choke point itself. Larik Island overlooks the exit routes. And farther west, Iran controls Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb, all strategically positioned within reach of the shipping lanes. These aren't just islands. They're forward military platforms built into the choke point itself. Take Qeshm Island. On the surface, it looks like any other island, but underneath, it's heavily militarized. There are underground tunnel networks, missile storage facilities, drone launch sites, and hidden naval assets along its coastline. From Qeshm alone, Iran can monitor and track nearly every vessel entering the strait. And more importantly, it can strike from multiple angles with very little warning. Hormuz Island pushes that advantage even further. Because it sits directly inside the passage, ships don't just pass near Iranian-controlled territory, they pass through it. And with Larik positioned near the exit, vessels remain exposed even as they attempt to leave the strait. This creates a layered battlefield where threats can emerge at multiple points, from multiple directions, at very short distances. And that's where geography stops being defensive and starts becoming offensive. Because Iran doesn't fight like a traditional navy. Instead of relying on large warships, it's built a strategy specifically designed for this environment: asymmetric warfare. Fast attack boats are a key part of this. Small, cheap, and extremely fast, they don't engage in direct combat. Instead, they operate in swarms, approaching from multiple directions at once and overwhelming larger ships that are built to handle more conventional threats. Then there are drones. Low-cost, expendable, and increasingly effective, they can be launched in waves. Even if most are intercepted, a few getting through is enough to cause damage and force a response. Anti-ship missiles add another layer. These can be launched from mobile platforms along the coastline or from island positions, making them difficult to detect before launch and giving defenders very little reaction time. But the most dangerous part of this system is something far simpler: naval mines. Because mines don't need precision, they don't need guidance, they don't need timing, they just need to exist. Even a small number of mines can shut down the entire strait, not because ships are destroyed, but because no one's willing to risk sailing through. And this is where things start to look very familiar. Because after recent escalations, we're already seeing the early effects. Shipping companies are adjusting routes, insurance costs are rising, naval escorts are increasing. Not because the strait is fully blocked, but because it's no longer stable. And that's enough. Now, here's the part most people underestimate. Clearing mines is not fast. It's one of the slowest operations in naval warfare. It requires specialized ships, careful scanning, and controlled removal. It can take days or even weeks to secure a single corridor, all while the threat of new mines still exists, which means even a temporary disruption can stretch into a prolonged crisis. Now, layer cost on top of all of this, because defending the Strait of Hormuz isn't just difficult, it's economically exhausting. To intercept a single drone, the US might fire a Patriot missile costing between $3 to $4 million. More advanced intercept systems can exceed $10 million per shot. Now compare that to the attacker, a drone that costs tens of thousands, a mine that costs even less, a small attack boat that's a fraction of the cost of what's needed to stop it. So every defensive action becomes a losing trade. And over time, that imbalance becomes the real battlefield. But here's the most important part. This is not theoretical. The United States has already tried to secure this region before, and it didn't work. During the 1980s, in what became known as the Tanker War, the Strait of Hormuz turned into an active conflict zone. Oil tankers were attacked, mines were deployed, shipping was repeatedly disrupted. The US responded with Operation Earnest Will, reflagging Kuwaiti tankers and escorting them through the strait with naval protection. Warships were deployed, patrols increased. The goal was simple: secure the waterway. And even with all that, it wasn't enough. In 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts, a US warship, struck an Iranian mine. A single mine, costing a fraction of the ship it damaged, nearly sank it. The US retaliated with Operation Praying Mantis, one of the largest naval engagements since World War II. Iranian ships were destroyed and oil platforms were targeted. But even after that, the Strait of Hormuz was not secured. Because the core problem never changed. You can destroy assets, you can respond to attacks, but you can't eliminate the threat entirely. And today, that problem is even bigger, because the stakes are global. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow corridor every single day. It's the primary export route for countries like Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and much of Saudi Arabia's eastern production. So when this region becomes unstable, the impact is immediate. Oil prices spike, shipping slows, markets react within hours. And that's exactly what we're starting to see now. Not a full shutdown, not a blockade, but instability. And that alone is enough to shake the system. Because the Strait of Hormuz doesn't need to be closed to cause damage. It just needs to feel unsafe. And that's where the biggest misconception breaks. People assume that if the US Navy is present, the situation is under control. But in Hormuz, control doesn't guarantee security. The challenge isn't a lack of military power. It's the nature of the environment itself. Too many entry points, too many overlapping threats, too little room to react, and no way to eliminate all of it at once. Which leads to the real conclusion. The Strait of Hormuz is not something that can be fully defended. It can be monitored. It can be patrolled. It can be protected to a degree, but it cannot be made completely secure. And that's what makes it one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Because it isn't just a waterway, it's a pressure point, a place where even a small disruption can ripple across the entire global economy. And in a conflict like this, that makes it one of the most powerful weapons in the world. Not because of what happens inside it, but because of what happens everywhere else when it becomes unstable.